I wanted to have an overview of the parable of the prodigal son alongside with our soul's journey. And our soul's journey, meaning from the moment that we detached from God and where we are now. Um, the parable of the prodigal son is one of the most famous parables that Jesus taught in the Bible. And the readings say that that it actually mirrors our soul's journey and what Jesus was saying. And as most things that Jesus said and was recorded, it had many levels of meanings. And one of the meanings was very mystical, and it was talking about our soul's journey. So we're going to go into the actual story in a bit. So I won't go into that right now. Before going into the story, I would like to just talk briefly about what prodigal actually means. Um, Prodigal, one definition is to be characterized by profuse or wasteful expenditure, lavish. So its keywords here are wasteful and lavish. So something that is spent without any consideration of resources, resourcefulness, or a wise spending of whatever it is considered. Another meaning, another definition is to spend or to use large amounts of money, time, energy, especially in a way that it's not very wise. And I like this definition because it's not talking just about the money and the time, but also about energy. And this is something that we will look into further on, that when it comes to spending whatever we have, it's not just about the time and the money, but it's also about our energy, our thoughts, our relationships, and our opportunities. So how are we spending those? And prodigal means to be spending those in a very unwise way. So by not considering the future, or by not considering the responsibility that comes with having all of that. And a third definition is to be wasteful, extravagant, spendthrift. Okay, so going into the actual story, I'm just going to mention it briefly. It's on Luke's Gospel 15:11-32, and what it talks about is a father that has two sons, and the youngest of which goes to the father and asks for his part of inheritance. Asks for his part of inheritance, and the father says, "Okay, you can have it." And soon after he has that, he decides to take everything that he has, and the son decides to take everything that he has and leave for a faraway country. So he goes on a very long journey. And what happens is that in this journey, he spends all of his inheritance in a very unwise way. You know, being the prodigal son, he spends everything that he has, and he remains without nothing, really. And to survive, he gets hired by someone to watch the pigs. And in the Jewish tradition, pigs are very unpure animals. So that's really a very low point for someone to reach. So after reaching that very low, the lowest of the low, the son remembers his father, and the son remembers his father and says, "I will go back to my father. Servants in his house live much better than I am living right now. So I will go back and ask him to be a servant in his house." And so he does. He just goes up, and he starts his journey back home. And while he's still far off from the house, the father sees him and runs to him and just embraces him and accepts him with love and compassion. And the son asks for forgiveness, and asks the father to, hire me as a servant, father, please. But the father is very happy to see his son, and of course he does not accept that, but he just makes a wonderful feast for his son that has returned, and that's, a happy ending, basically. So this is a very, very famous parable, um, and the reason why it's very famous is because we are attracted to a story, especially a story like this one. We are attracted to this story because it's a redemption story. So someone has everything, loses everything, and then goes back to having everything. And there's a hero, that goes on a journey, and it's not just an outer journey. So it just does not leave just physically, but also it's an inner journey. So it's an inner transformation journey. So the son starts off with a bit of an arrogant attitude. I just want my part of inheritance, and I will go, and then goes back to the father with a humble heart. So it's an inner and an outer journey, and it ends where it begins. So we call these circular stories in storytelling. They start in a certain place, and they end in the same place. So it starts at the father's house, and then it ends at the father's house. And this is a very common structure for stories. If we look at some of the stories that we have been reading, or some of the movies that we have been seeing, if we jot it down to the core, if we look at the core of the story, it's always the same. And we're going to play a little game right now. So I want you to think of a story, something that you have read, a story that you like, a movie that you like, something that you have seen recently. And I want you to think of that story and think of where it starts, where it ends. If someone leaves their home to go on a journey and to come back changed, because 99% of the time that's what usually happens in the story. Not sure if you are writing in the chat right now. If you want to share what you some of the stories that you have read when you were little, or something that you like, please do. We have a lot of friends from Sweden here. So when I was little, there was a Swedish story that was Nils Holgersson. I'm not sure if anyone has read or seen that. And it's the same pattern as all of these three stories that are here. It starts at a home, or it starts somewhere, and then something happens that the hero just leaves and goes far away from home in a faraway journey. And that journey requires a lot from that hero. So it requires a lot of personal transformation, because there are a lot of challenges. And in the end, that hero comes to succeed in all of these challenges and to go back to the home. But it's not the same person that goes back. It's always someone that is changed. Dorothy, there's no place like home. Yes, it's the same story. It's the same pattern. And there is a reason why we are attracted to this kind of pattern. It's no coincidence that most of the stories follow this pattern. Hollywood, for example, has made an art of this. To tell, it's all of the movies are more or less the same story. So we are attracted to stories like this, like the parable of the prodigal son, or stories like the Wizard of Oz, or other stories that have this pattern, because these stories, they actually reflect our soul's journey. So they are like a mirror. They're like a mirror where we know what we are looking at. We are looking at our soul's journey. And it's a representation of our spiritual destiny. Just like in the parable of the prodigal son, that the son goes back to the father and the father accepts him with nothing but love and compassion. That's also our spiritual destiny, to go back to the father and to be heirs with the Christ, as the readings say. So I've been separating this story into 5 key moments, and this is my personal interpretation of this. So I know that there are other key moments in the story, but I've chosen this particular 5 ones, and I would like to compare them with 5 moments in our spiritual journey. So first we have a prodigal son. So we have, the beginning. And in the beginning, the readings say we were created to be companions. This is seems like a very short and simple phrase, but there's a lot in there. So we were created to be companions. And as we will see further on, we were created with certain attributes and certain qualities. So being created to be companions comes with certain responsibilities, certain powers and responsibilities. And then in the story of the prodigal son, the son at a certain moment decides to leave. And in our spiritual journey, we start enjoying a bit too much our earthly experiences. Between the first and the two, so between created to be companions and enjoying our earthly experiences a bit too much, there's a lot in between. So as the readings say, the separation that happened, us as souls from God, happened in spirit. So it actually did not happen in the earth. We were created to be companions, and we were given all powers, all divine powers, and all divine attributes. And we were actually co-creator with God, that we co-created the universe. And the universe was our playground, and we were supposed to go in the playground and learn to express the attributes that we were given. So to express our divine power. And then we stumbled into earth, and then we decided to, this is very interesting thing, the earth. Let us try that a little bit. So let us put on some bodies and just, try to see what happens. But actually that created a lot of separation. So just as the prodigal son decided to leave, we also separated ourselves from our father. And if you have any thoughts or any questions or anything about this, please, you can type the answer in the chat and we can have a Q&A afterwards. And then in the prodigal son story, the son hits rock bottom, so he becomes a herder to pigs, and that's the lowest moment for him. And also for us in our soul's journey, we become trapped in the earth. And the readings say that we become trapped in our bodies. We become trapped so much that we just forget who we are. We forget that we are divine sparks, that we are eternal souls, and that we don't actually belong in the earth, but we just start identifying with our bodies. But most of all, we start loving the matter. We start loving the creation more than we love the creator. So those are the mistakes that lead us to hitting rock bottom and becoming so entrapped that we actually forget who we are. And then the prodigal son, at a certain moment, decides to return to the father. He remembers his father. That's how the story goes. In a moment, he remembers his father and decides to return. And that's pretty much what happens with us as well. Um, the readings say that um, the Christ consciousness, which is the door to the Father, the way to the Father, basically, the Christ consciousness is the pattern that is imprinted on each soul, and it just awaits to be awakened. So it's also for us a decision to go back, but we will see that in more detail later. And then the last moment in the story is being back home to the Father, going back to the Father. And this is the same for us as well. The destiny of the soul, my destiny, your destiny as well, is to go back to the arms of a loving Father, back to that realm of divine consciousness. So these are the 5 key moments, and our creation. So from the moment of our creation until now, where we are now, there's a lot has happened. But just for the sake of this presentation and just for the sake of the comparison, I've concentrated into 5 key moments, and we can discuss that later on. I know that there are other key moments that deserve mentioning for sure. Following are 4 or 5 highlights from the story, from the Prodigal Son story, that I think are pretty important. And these are just my interpretation. So it felt that these were important to me. So I'll start with the first one. And the first one is spending our divine heritage. That's actually key, both in the story and in our spiritual journey. And this is a report from reading 262-130. And it says, in the beginning, it pleased God to make souls to be his companions. These, made of the breath of God, possess divine attributes. So in the beginning, all power was given in heaven and in the earth to the sons of God. That would be us, basically. We, among the souls of this creation, misused our divine heritage and sought self-satisfaction through manifestation in the physical world. This brought a warring between our physical and spiritual natures, and there was spiritual darkness. So what happened in the beginning is that we had everything. We literally had everything. But what we did with that was spending it unwisely. So we spent our divine heritage for self-satisfaction through manifestation in the physical world. And that brought a warring between our physical and spiritual natures. So as men, as human beings, we are both spiritual and physical at the moment, and we have both natures. And sometimes we forget, who we truly are. We just identify with our physical nature more than we do with our spiritual one. And spending our divine heritage. This is from Edgar Cayce. It's an explanation of the journey that Edgar Cayce did in consciousness. So it's a journey in consciousness from the moment where he entered that trance, to the moment that he reached the Akashic records. And Hughlin says, Dad, Edgar Cayce, described these thought forms as he went out looking for readings. He speaks of himself passing on a shaft of light through many planes. Every plane had thought forms on it that had been created by man. So what we're talking about here is that what we think, so our thought patterns are real, just as the readings say that thoughts are things. They are real, and they just don't, when we stop thinking something, especially if we think it very intensely or in a prolonged, like for a long time, that is real and exists somewhere, even though we don't see it. We don't touch it, we don't smell it, we don't, we don't hear it. It still exists. And these thought forms that Julian Cayce is talking about are just that, are thought forms, so our thought patterns. So every plane had thought forms on it that had been created by man, energy patterns that had withdrawn from one shell, withdrawn from another shell, and were moving in consciousness. These thought forms are the forces that are spoken of in the readings. These thought forces, combined with the original forces and pattern of God's purpose for the souls in the earth, in creation, not only in this earth, but in all creation. So when man builds patterns that are opposed to God's will, he creates negative forces, rebellious forces. They become rebellious forces to which he can attune. Now, this is very important. Before reading this, I never really realized that, we can become attuned to the rebellious forces or to the negative forces, which is, of course, true. When we say that, oh, I feel so negative right now, or, I feel in a spirit of rebellion, or, just, can't take that or something, that's us becoming attuned to a negative energy pattern or to a rebellious forces. And then it ends, so the explanation ends. However, he also builds cooperative forces in patience and love and long suffering. The readings reiterate these over and over again. So these forces that he builds becomes good. So in the past, we basically misused what we had. So we misused our divine heritage. We used it to seek self-satisfaction in our physical bodies, to create physical bodies that were monstrosities, as the readings say. But the thing is that although we might not have that power now, to create bodies just out of thin air, we still have some divine power. And that divine power that we have is exercised through our mind. And what we think, or what we feel, or what we desire, because all of these are connected, and the mind is fueled by what we desire and what we feel. All these become real. So yes, we spent in the past, we misused our divine heritage. But what do we do with the divine heritage that we have now? And this explanation is very real. It gives form, to that phrase, thoughts are things. It explains it. Thought forms, things that we think over and over again, the negativity that we may express sometimes, or the worry, or the desires of the body, the appetites of the body, for example, they just go on to exist in the consciousness, in different planes of consciousness. Just they are there. So how are we spending our divine heritage now? Just think about what you think during a day. If you have more negative thoughts or more positive thoughts. If you are in a line at the supermarket and the line is very long and it's taking ages, to go to finish, just, do you get frustrated? Does it happen a lot? Moments like this may feed our soul, our mind. Our mind either grows with what negative thoughts we give it, or with positive thoughts. Either way, our mind is going to be fed on something. So and that's our divine heritage, that's our creative power, and we still have that. So how are we spending it now? But it's not just the worry or the frustration the reading also says something else about that. So this is taken from work readings. I think this is work readings, 254-101. And it says, the kingdom of heaven is within. Do ye worship there, not thyself, but thy God? Hast thou made thy God fame, fortune, or just to be well spoken of? That alone then may ye attain. So what it's saying here is that we may desire things, we may desire to be very rich, or we may desire to be famous, to be well spoken of by the people that we know. And, we have the power to get that if we want. We may desire it and we can get it, but that alone we will get. And this is also a question of opportunities. So how we use our opportunities. We can desire these things, or we can direct all our desires and all our energies to our spiritual growth. So we can try and spiritualize the desires of our heart or the thoughts of our mind. And the next highlight from the story that I would like to expand on, and this is something particular. The reading is a bit particular. So the prodigal son in us, sometimes, I think that, or from my personal experience, I found that one of the toughest lessons that one can learn is that everything around us, me, everything around you, so everything in your life is actually your responsibility. So it's what you have created for yourself. Even sometimes when it feels that events just happen to us, something that we feel like we have no control over, it's still something that we have created. It's us meeting ourselves, either in the form of a karmic debt, or like we have karma with someone or in a certain situation, or a lesson that we have to learn because we have overlooked it in the past, or we have just ignored it in the past. These are all things that we have to meet. So there's a prodigal son in each of us, each and every one of us individually. So not just as a group of souls, not just as a humanity, but us at an individual level. We have also misused our divine heritage, and we are here because of that. So, taking responsibility, that's one of the first steps towards the way back. And this is a reading, this part of the reading says, and this is from the 262 series, so it's A Search for God books. So the reading says, draw the comparison within thyself as to those experiences indicated in the first, second, and third of Genesis, and those in the second of Luke, where we find our pattern, our lesson, and those illustrations that indicate sin versus righteousness, one willfully seeking to know the relationship to the Creator, or the answer, know ye not that I must be about my Father's business? How different from that other, the woman that thou gavest me. She persuaded me, and I did eat. So these are two moments in the Bible, one at the very beginning and one at the end. So the first one, know ye not that I must be about my Father's business, that is Jesus, that is 12 years old, and that purposefully went to the temple to talk with the elders while his family had already moved from that city. So they notice that he was missing from the caravan, and they go back to fetch him. And when they go back and, ask him like, why are you here still? Why are you not with us? And he says, know ye not that I must be about my father's business? So don't you know that I have a purpose for being here? And the last one is, the woman that thou gavest me, she persuaded me, and I did eat. And this is Adam talking. And this is the after God, I think it's a moment where God looks for them in the Garden of Eden, and he finds them, and he understands that something is not quite right, or he understands that they ate from the forbidden fruit, and he asks Adam, what did you do? And Adam says, the woman, it's her fault, or your fault that you gave her to me, not my fault. Just don't look at me. So what the reading is saying here is that there are two different approaches to life here. And for those of you who maybe not all of you know, but Adam is one of the first incarnations of Jesus. So it's a master soul. Adam was one of the first incarnation of the master soul. So it's the same soul here, okay? And it's the beginning of his journey, and it's the end of his journey. And what the readings say here, it's see the difference between the two. How different between the first answer in the beginning, her fault, not mine, to don't you know that I have a purpose here? I have to be about my father's business. So the difference in the personal responsibility, one not accepting it, and the other one fully accepting it. And we are somewhere in between, but we are definitely on our way, to taking our personal responsibility for what we have misused in the past. And the next moment in the prodigal son story that I would like to highlight, and this is very important, so there's going to be a few slides of this. It's willful choices. So I think it's very important to talk about the fact that the prodigal son in the story makes willful choices. Okay, so he decides to leave, and he decides to return as well. So he's exercising his free will. And that's what we have done as well, because the prodigal son is us. So his story is a reflection of our story. And he used his free will a bit foolishly in the beginning. And so have we. And then we use it for the better in the end. So to make a proper choice. So what the readings say about this, first of all, this is an explanation of what will is. And this is, I've forgotten the number of the reading here, but it's from the 900 series. So it's Morton Blumenthal asking. Question, explain in terms of the will, define will, what is it? Answer, will is that faculty of the body-mind with which man may either express the selfish desires of the flesh or the will of the Father. See, I will arise and go to my Father. Father, give me my portion. I will go into the world and seek. See the variation in the two? One, I will for my own individual, and I will arise and go to my Father, becoming subservient to the will of the whole, and a manifestation of selves or self-desire. So it's using the prodigal son story as an example here. In the beginning, Father, give him my portion and I will go. It's seeking his own personal desire. So it's going after his own personal desire without considering the attunement, or the harmony with the Father's will. So I just want to do what I want to do. I don't care. Just give me my portion. I will go. And the other one is, I will go back to my father. Okay, so it's becoming subservient. So it's accepting. It's accepting in humbleness the will of the whole. So will can be used both ways. Um, by the way, just a little explanation. Will is part of the soul. Um, so the soul is made of the mind, of the will, and of the divine spirit. So these are the three components of the soul. And I would recommend, what I found very useful and very illuminating was um, uh, Dr. Herb Puryear introduction to one of the circulating files, Soul Birth. You can find that on the ARE website. He explains it very well there. So will is part of the soul and is just, part of who we are. So we have to exercise it um, for the good or for the bad. And some people have um, have a strong will, what we call a strong will. So they do make very willful choices, and other people do not have a strong will, so they kind of um, fall to the circumstances. Okay, so will is like a muscle. We have to exercise it, and we have to exercise it in the right way to make proper use of it. Again, about the will, this is reading 5749-14. And question, are hereditary, environment, and will equal factors in aiding or retarding the entity's development? So we're talking about three things here, hereditary, environment, and will. And the answer is, will is the greatest factor, for it may overcome any or all of the others, provided that will is made one with the pattern. See? For no influence of heredity, environment, or whatnot surpasses the will. Else, why would there have been that pattern shown in which the individual soul, no matter how far astray it may have gone, may enter with him into the Holy of Holies? And to be honest, I'm not really sure what kind of pattern, if it's talking about pattern Jesus or if it's talking about any other kind of, but I think it should be talking about Jesus here. But the key thing is that will is the greatest factor in our life. No matter what happens, we still have the choice. The choice is still ours to make. So we can either say a kind word even when we are angry, or we can, say the bad word and just give in to negative feelings or emotions. Whatever situation is presented in our life, yes, we do have other influences that come in, but will is still the greatest factor. And this last one here about the willful choices, I edited this one here because I wanted to give this the reason why we have will. And this is very beautifully said, by the way. And it's again from the study group readings, 262-56. And the question is, comment upon the following. Is it worthy of expansion? That is, does it contain or carry any light of truth? And what they have written, they are basically asking for Edgar Cayce to comment, for the source to comment. The creator, in seeking to find or create a being worthy of companionship, realized that such a being would result only from a free will exercising its divine inheritance, and through its own efforts find its maker. Thus, to make the choice really a divine one caused the existence of states of consciousness that would indeed tax the free will of a soul. Thus, light and darkness, truly only those tried as soul by fire can enter in. And the comment coming from the readings, so from Mr. Cayce in trance, is the only variation that we would make is that all souls in the beginning were one with the Father. The separation or turning away brought evil. Then there became the necessity of the awareness of selves being out of accord with or out of the realm of blessedness. And as given of the Son, yet learned he obedience through the things which he suffered. So it's saying, yes, God did give us free will so we could be beings worthy of companionship, because, as we all know, there is no companionship without freedom. And that famous quote that says, if you love someone, you have to let them go. And if they come back, they love you as well. That's true. That's the essence of what it's saying here, to be worthy of companionship. So to have proper companionship with God, we have to have free will. And the only correction is that we were with God, we were one with God in the beginning, but it was us that separated that. So it's God did not create the different states of consciousness. So what we were talking before, that Hulin was explaining, that thought forms were in different planes of consciousness. So the creation of the different states of consciousness, so consciousness that was out of the realm of blessedness, that came because of the necessity for the souls to realize, for us to realize that we were not one with God anymore. It's like when you think that you are on your way home, and you suddenly realize that, okay, wait, this is not where I'm supposed to be. this is what it's saying here. And the last part, so the last highlight from the reading is back in the arms of a loving Father. And when reading the prodigal son story, often we overcome this part. So we overlook it, basically. And we overlook the reaction of the father, actually. So, where we focus mostly is, the son, spent his inheritance and was left with nothing and all of that, which is very interesting. But this is also worthy of attention, because think of someone in your family. Okay, think of someone in your family, and think of that someone taking half of what you have right now. So half of your bank account, half of your house, half of everything, and spending it all away. So it's gone. You will never see it again. And they suddenly come to you, ask you for forgiveness. Like, at least for us as a human beings, it's not really an easy choice. But for the father in this story, it seems like a very easy choice, because when he saw his son from afar, so the son was not yet home, he ran to him and just embraced him with nothing but love and compassion. And this is how Jesus ends the story of the prodigal son. I say to you that likewise there will be no more. I say to you that likewise there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 just persons who need no repentance. So to you, just persons who need no repentance, I'm sorry, but sinners will cause more joy in heaven. So if there is one thing that I would like to leave you with at the end of this presentation, is that we are never far away from the love of the Father. We are never far away from the light of God. And actually, one reading says it beautifully. And this is again from the work readings. And it says, "For his promises are sure, His arms are not short as man's arms or promises. For though the world, though heaven, though the earth may pass away, his promise, his word, his love passeth not away. So just that is enough to make us think twice when we, make our willful choices during the day or during the week, and to realize that we are actually never alone. We always have the light and the love around us. And that's what I would like to leave you with. And I'm going to stop sharing. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to discuss, to talk with you.